When Emily and her husband Ben moved into the old Victorian home, nestled at the edge of a quiet Illinois suburb, it felt like the start of a perfect chapter. Emily was 8 months pregnant. Ben had just landed a new job at a law firm downtown. And the house, despite its creaky bones, offered the kind of charm you couldn't fake. Crown molding, stained glass windows, original oak floors. It even came fully furnished, courtesy of the elderly couple who had lived there for nearly 40 years. They'd left everything behind, right down to a porcelain doll sitting on a dusty nursery shelf. "It gives the place character," the realtor had said. "A little history never hurt anyone." Emily didn't think much of it at the time. In fact, she loved the nursery most of all. Sunlight poured through its arched window in the mornings. The wallpaper had delicate patterns of clouds, birds, and stars. It was peaceful, serene. But something about the room always made her hesitate when she crossed the threshold. Not fear, exactly just a pressure. Like walking into a room that had just been vacated by someone who was in tea quite finished with their conversation. She brushed it off as nerves. After all, motherhood was daunting enough without inventing ghosts. 2 months later, Lucas was born. They brought him home on a rainy Thursday. Emily had installed a high-end baby monitor above the crib asleep. Modern model with night vision, two-way audio, and motion detection. The receiver sat on her nightstand like a silent sentry, its small LED screen glowing faintly through the night. The first few nights were uneventful. Lucas, unlike most newborns, slept deeply and rarely fussed. Emily would often watch the monitor even when he wasn't crying, captivated by the quiet rise and fall of his chest. Then, on the 6th night, something changed. It started as a faint sound, soft, distant, like the muted sob of another child. Emily glanced at the monitor. Lucas was sleeping, perfectly still. Crying wasn't coming from him. She turned up the volume. The crying grew clearer, sad, isolated, and definitely not coming from her baby. Ben brushed it off. It's interference. These monitors can pick up weird frequencies. It's probably someone on a baby monitor 3 streets over. But the next night, the crying returned louder, and it was joined by something worse. A voice. A faint lullaby. "Hush, little baby. Don't say a word." Spoken in a rasping whisper that didn't belong to anyone living. Emily leaned closer to the screen. In the corner of the night vision feed, just beside the crib, something flickered. A face, small, pale, watching and smiling. The next morning, Emily didn't say much. She sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped tightly around a steaming mug of coffee, staring blankly at the baby monitor she had unplugged and placed on the counter. Ben moved around the kitchen with a kind of obliviousness only possible for someone who hadn't seen what she had. "You were probably dreaming," he said again, more gently this time. "Sleep-deprived, stressed out. Hallucinations aren't uncommon for new moms." She didn't answer. It had already gone through every rational explanation in her head. Faulty wiring, signal interference, a weird reflection, but none of that explained the face. It wasn't just a blurted head expression, depth, pain, and the song. It hadn't sounded like a recording. It sounded alive. Later that afternoon, while Lucas napped, she opened her laptop and connected the baby monitor's SD card. The camera recorded all motion-triggered clips to a microdrive. She scrolled through dozens of short night vision videos, Lucas rolling over, kicking in his sleep, an occasional yawn. Then she found the clip from 2:44 a.m., the moment she'd seen the second face. She clicked play. The screen remained quiet for the first 10 seconds. Then came the soft lullaby. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. The hair on her arms stood up. It was exactly as she remembered. She turned up the volume. At 15 seconds in, the corner of the screen shimmered. Emily leaned closer. It was faint, almost a blur, but then it sharpened. A small girl, no older than 6, with long black hair and a tattered white dress, appeared beside Lucas's crib. She wasn't touching anything, just standing, watching. Her mouth moved slightly out of sync with the audio, like a puppet's. The voice singing was hers. Then she turned her head toward the camera. Emily slammed the laptop shut. When Ben got home that evening, she showed him the clip. He watched it in silence, arms folded across his chest, frowning. "It's a glitch," he said, but there was no confidence in his voice. "Could be edited somehow. Maybe you downloaded something." "I didn't download anything, Ben. That's from the monitor. That thing is in our son's room." He sighed and glanced toward the nursery. Lucas was in there now, asleep, the mobile spinning slowly above him. "Let's sleep with him in our room tonight," Emily said. Ben hesitated, then nodded. That night, Lucas's crib was moved beside their bed. The baby monitor stayed off. But Emily couldn't sleep. Around 2:30 a.m., she sat upright, her ears straining against the quiet hum of the house. No crying, no singing, just the usual creaks of old wood and distant passing cars. And then, the mobile in the nursery still plugged in began to spin. The soft lullaby it played echoed faintly through the hallway, even though no one was in the room. Emily knew. Something was still in there, watching. Emily barely slept that night. Every creak of the floor, every faint gust rattling the old window panes jolted her upright in bed. She had brought Lucas into their room for safety, but the fact that the nursery mobile had spun on its own while the room sat empty played over and over in her mind like a broken reel. By morning, her eyes were red from crying, though she had shed no tears. Ben tried to comfort her. "We can call a technician. Have the wiring checked? Maybe the monitor's audio is looping from another signal. Something explainable." But Emily no longer believed in convenient explanations, not after seeing that little girl's face, not after hearing her sing to their son as if she belonged to him. "I want to know who lived here before us," she said suddenly. Standing by the window, her gaze locked on the nursery across the hall. Something happened in this house. Something that never left. Ben paused, clearly trying to decide if he should entertain this or push back. Eventually, he gave in. "Fine. I'll check the property history." Emily didn't wait for him. That afternoon, with Lucas napping in his bassinet beside her, she pulled up the county records. The house had been built in 1912, and ownership had changed hands only a few times, most recently by the elderly couple who sold it to them. Before that, it had belonged to a family named Wallace, Thomas, and Claire Wallace. 2 children. One of them, a 6-year-old daughter named Dita D. Wallace, died in the home in 1993. Cause of death, undetermined. Found in her bed, peaceful expression. Emily's mouth went dry. She searched deeper, combing through old news archives. Buried in the local paper's obituary section was a grainy black and white photo of Lily Wallace. It was the same face, the same wide, vacant eyes, the same long black hair and white nightgown. Emily backed away from the screen, her heartbeat pounding against her ribs like fists on a locked door. This wasn't her imagination. Lily was real. and something about her had never left room 244 that night. She didn't bring Lucas into the master bedroom. She wanted to try something else. She waited until after midnight, then turned the baby monitor back on and set the receiver on the bed. Lucas stayed in the nursery, sleeping peacefully under the soft rotation of the mobile. Emily lay next to the screen, watching, recording, waiting. 2 a.m. nothing. 2:15 a.m. just static. 2:30 a.m. Lucas stirred slightly, rolled over. Oh do 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 do. 2:44 a.m. the screen flickered. A soft, almost imperceptible hum began like the faint tune of a lullaby played backwards. The shadows in the nursery deepened, and then, once again, Lily appeared. But this time, she wasn't looking at Lucas. She was staring directly into the camera and smiling. Emily's breath caught in her throat as Lily's pale face lingered on the screen. The ghost child didn't vanish this time. She just stood there by the crib, that eerie, knowing smile never fading. Her eyes were empty, not just of life, but of presence. Like she wasn't truly in the room, but watching from behind something. As if reality itself was a thin curtain she could part whenever she pleased. The monitor's audio feed picked up a faint whisper. At first, Emily thought it was the static, and the words grew clearer. Soft, sing-song like a voice heard underwater. She's mine now, Emily. Bolted upright, she checked the time. 2:45 a.m. Lucas still lay motionless in the crib, oblivious. But now Lily was no longer beside him on screen. She was at the nursery door. On the monitor, her face slowly turned toward the hallway, toward the master bedroom. Emily's stomach dropped. Sudden knock echoed through the house. Not loud, just a light, childlike knock, 3 slow taps. On their bedroom door, she stared at it, frozen, heart thudding like thunder. Ben snored softly beside her, completely unaware. The baby monitor screen flickered again. For a split second, Lily disappeared. Then she reappeared at the foot of Lucas's crib. Emily looked from the door to the monitor, back and forth, pulse racing. She forced herself to get up, walking with slow, quiet steps to the nursery. The house was cold, not just chilly but deep bone cold, like the warmth had been sucked out by something unnatural. The nursery door was half open, creaking slightly as she pushed it. Lucas was fine, sleeping calmly. The mobile above him had stopped spinning. Everything looked normal. The monitor must have glitched. She stood there for a full minute trying to calm her breathing, trying to convince herself that Lily wasn't real, that her mind was playing tricks on her. But as she turned to leave, she saw something that made her stop. On the inside of the door where Lucas couldn't reach were 3 tiny fingerprints, small, greasy, like a child had touched the wood with cold, bare hands. Emily slammed the door and rushed back to the bedroom, scooping up Lucas without a second thought. Ben finally stirred as she stood over him. "We're not sleeping here tonight," she said firmly. "We're leaving now." "Emily, it's the middle of the night," she spoke to me, Ben. She whispered through the monitor. She said Lucas was hers, and she's not just some image on a screen anymore. She's in this house. Ben rubbed his eyes, groggy but now worried. Okay, let's go." They packed what they could and drove to a nearby motel. Lucas still asleep in her arms. But when Emily opened the trunk to grab his bag, she noticed something that made her heart stop. Inside, tucked between the diapers and bottles, was Lucas's baby monitor, still on, still glowing and playing, a lullaby that hadn't been there before. The motel room was small, Just a queen bed, a tiny kitchenette, and a window that looked out over the empty parking lot. Fluorescent lights flickered in the hallway outside, and the air smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. But Emily didn't care. It was away from the house, away from that nursery, away from Lily. Lucas lay on the bed, wrapped in blankets, still asleep, peacefully as always. Ben locked the door, bolted it, and pulled the curtains shut. Emily set the baby monitor on the nightstand and stared at it, still glowing faint blue. The screen was black now, showing nothing. No nursery, no shadows, no Lily. But the audio was still active. It played static, low, and constant, till it wasn't. At exactly 3:08 a.m., the lullaby returned, not the one from before. This was slower, creepier, more broken, like it had been recorded decades ago and played through rotting tape. Emily leaned in. The melody sounded reversed, warped. She couldn't make out any words. Ben sat beside her, his face pale and tired. Should we just turn it off? I already tried. She picked up the monitor and held it toward him. There's no off switch now. It used to be here. It's gone. He frowned, took it from her, and turned it over. There was no power button, no volume dial. It's just smooth plastic and that faint blue glow. Melly took out her phone and searched for the model online, trying to find specs, manuals, anything. But every search came up empty. No matches, no records. It was like the monitor didn't exist. And then came the whisper. This time they both heard it, clear as day. Don't wake her. Emily and Ben locked eyes, fear crawling across their faces like a slow-moving storm. She's following us, Emily said quietly. Ben stood and unplugged the monitor from the wall, yanking the cord out hard enough to spark. The screen didn't flicker. It didn't even acknowledge the change. She's not just in that house anymore, Emily whispered. She's with us. Lucas stirred in his sleep, making a soft cooing sound. Emily rushed to his side, gently touching his forehead, still warm, still breathing. But as she leaned in closer, she saw something that made her stomach twist. On Lucas's chest, over his onesie, was a small, childlike handprint. It was faint, dusty, almost like soot, but it was there. And Lucas, smiling in his sleep, not his normal gummy smile. Something else, something unnatural. His lips were parted just slightly, the corners too high, his expression vacant. Ben, she said, her voice cracking. She's been touching him. Ben backed away from the crib, his voice shaky. We need to go back. To the house. We need to. Figure out what she wants, why she's here. Emily looked at him, horrified. Go back. Are you out of your mind? She followed us here, Ben said. Doesn't matter where we go. We can't run from this. The monitor clicked, not audibly but visibly. A file opened on the screen. A time-stamped recording. Lily_2:44am_backup.mov. Emily didn't touch it. But it began to play on its own. In the video, the nursery was quiet. Lucas lay asleep. And next to him, Lily leaned over his crib, whispering something repeatedly into his ear. But the audio was distorted. Only 2 words came through clearly. Not mine now. Emily couldn't tear her eyes away from the monitor. The screen kept looping the clip of Lily whispering into Lucas's ear, her mouth moving in a slow, deliberate rhythm. The words weren't just spoken, they were placed like seeds, growing inside him. Ben was pacing now, frantic. What if she's attached to something? Toy, a blanket, something we took from that house. Emily shook her head. No, she's not attached to a thing. She's attached to him. The monitor screen suddenly cut to static again, but just for a moment. Then it showed something new, not the nursery. This time the camera was in a different room, dusty, dim. The footage was shaky, as if being filmed from a handheld angle. A crawl space. A flashlight beam flickered across the screen. Wooden beams. Insulation. Then, something else. A doll. Old. Decayed. Its porcelain face cracked. One eye missing. Next to the doll was a photo. Emily leaned in. That's the Wallace family. The camera zoomed closer. The picture was torn, but clearly showed Thomas and Claire Wallace, with their daughter Lily standing between them. Same lifeless eyes, same white dress. Behind the doll, something was etched into the beam. Ben paused the footage. He stared at the screen. Etched deep into the wood were the words, "Do not disturb her sleep." The file name at the top of the screen read, aticum_1993_restoration.mov. Emily turned to Ben, trembling. "The camera, where is it filming from?" "There's no attic cam," Ben muttered. "Never installed anything like that." They exchanged a look, and without speaking, both knew what they had to do. They drove back to the house just before sunrise. The house looked darker than usual, the windows more hollow, like a skull left in shadow. Emily held Lucas tightly against her chest as Ben unlocked the door. Every step creaked louder than she remembered. The house didn't feel empty, it felt aware. They made their way to the attic entrance, the pull-down ladder hidden behind a panel in the hallway ceiling. Ben tugged the cord. The ladder unfolded with a groan. Dust spilled from the seams. "I'm going up alone," Ben said. "No, we go together." The attic smelled like damp wood and mothballs. Old boxers, yellowed newspapers, and forgotten furniture littered the space. Emily held her phone's flashlight high, its beam bouncing through cobwebs. Then they saw it. A small child-sized mattress laid out in the far corner beneath the lowest part of the slanted ceiling. A rotted white pillow. An old stuffed rabbit. The same porcelain doll from the video now lying face down on the mattress. Next to it, the same photo from the video: Thomas, Claire, and Lily. Only now, someone had drawn black X's over the parents' faces. And across the mattress, scrawled in red crayon, was a single line repeated over and over, covering the wooden floor. "She wakes when they forget." Suddenly, Emily felt something warm. Lucas. He was sweating, shaking, then his lips moved. He whispered something in Lily's voice. "You left my room. You weren't supposed to." Emily stumbled backward, clutching Lucas tighter. His body had gone strangely limp, like he was half asleep, but dreaming something heavy and ancient. His lips moved again, slowly, softly. "You promised me forever." Ben stepped forward, flashlight trembling in his hand. "That wasn't our voice," he whispered. "That wasn't his voice." Emily shook her head, eyes wide with horror. She's inside him now. The attic felt smaller somehow, more enclosed. The temperature had dropped noticeably, their breaths now visible in the beam of the light. Lucas suddenly began to cry only. It wasn't the high-pitched wail of a newborn. It was deeper, sadder, almost practiced. Emily reached for the doll, her hand hovering just above its cracked face. "This is where she was kept," she said. Ben moved to stop her. "Don't touch it." But Emily had already picked it up. The moment her fingers made contact, the flashlight died. Darkness swallowed them instantly, so dense it felt like pressure on their skin. Then the attic came alive. All around them, whispers surged, bouncing off the wooden beams. Dozens of voices, all children murmuring, sobbing, chanting, laughing. Ben fumbled for his phone light. It flicked on briefly, just long enough to reveal something moving behind Emily. A figure, small white dress, hair hanging like wet rope, eyes that were no longer empty, but filled with purpose. Lily, she reached for Emily, who instinctively backed away, but the floor beneath her gave out with a splintering crack. Wood snapped. The rotten attic planks gave way. Emily and Lucas fell straight through, crashing down into the second-floor hallway below. Ben screamed her name, dropped to his knees, and looked down through the broken hole. Emily lay on her side, moaning in pain, blood on her arm. Lucas was crying now, his real cry. She was about to reach for him when something rolled out beside her. Still staring up, unbroken, still whispering. Ben clambered down the attic ladder and rushed to her side. We need to end this. Now, Emily's eyes locked on his. What if she doesn't want an ending? Together they carried Lucas and the doll downstairs. As they passed the nursery, the baby monitor on the wall powered on by itself. The screen flickered to life. A new file loaded. Wallace_contract.mov. Ben hit play. It was old footage, VHS quality. Inside the nursery, a woman, Claire Wallace, stood, holding a doll, weeping. Behind her, Thomas Wallace was hammering something into the floorboards beneath the crib. Then came her voice. She won't rest unless she's promised something. So we gave her what she asked for. The woman looked straight into the camera. We told her as long as a child sleeps in this room, she will never be forgotten. She will never wake. Ben froze. That's why they kept it so quiet. That's why they never sold the house while kids were living here. Emily's voice cracked. When they finally left, Ben nodded, eyes wide. They broke the promise. That's when they heard it. The front door slammed. The mobile in the nursery began spinning on its own. And upstairs, from the attic, someone started coming down the ladder. Emily and Ben stood frozen in the hallway as the creaking footsteps descended from the attic above. Each step groaned like a warning, slow and deliberate, as if whoever or whatever was coming down wanted them to feel every second of it. Emily clutched Lucas tightly, his sobs now reduced to a terrified whimper. Ben positioned himself between them and the attic door, his fists clenched, though he knew brute strength wouldn't help here. Then, the monitor behind them clicked. Another file auto-loaded. Forgotten_final.mov no play button, just static. Then Lily's face filled the screen up close, to close her mouth unmoving. But her voice crystal clear. You broke the promise. He sleeps in my room. He is mine now. The air in the house tightened, like the walls themselves were pulling inward. Suddenly, the nursery door slammed shut. Then the mobile inside spun faster. The monitor screen shook. The lights flickered. Emily screamed, "No, he's not yours." The doll in her hands vibrated violently, its ceramic skin cracking along the hairline. A thin stream of black liquid began seeping from its seams, dripping onto the hardwood. Then bang. The attic ladder snapped back up, slamming into the ceiling. Silence. The monitor screen blinked once, then twice. And then it displayed something new. One offering reversed, one promise renewed. And just like that, the spinning mobile stopped. The temperature lifted. The whispering ceased. The doll went still in Emily's hands, lifeless, inert. Lucas relaxed in her arms and fell into a quiet, peaceful sleep. Ben looked around, bewildered. What just happened? Emily stared at the broken doll. She didn't want a soul. She wanted memory. She wanted to be known. That's all she ever wanted, to not be erased. Ben stepped toward the baby monitor, now dark and silent. He gently unplugged it. Nothing happened. No noise. No whispers. No Lily. They buried the doll the next morning in the woods behind the house, beneath the oldest tree they could find. Emily wrapped it in the torn Wallace family photo, placed it in a shoebox, and whispered one final promise before covering it with earth. You're not forgotten. Not anymore. After that day, the house grew quiet. The nursery was still. Lucas never cried at 2:44 a.m. again. The monitor never lit up on its own. Even the attic felt empty. For the first time since they moved in, the house felt like theirs. And yet, every night at exactly 2:44 a.m., the baby monitor still turned on. No video, no audio. Just a soft pulse of blue light, like someone watching, never waking.